This is Rumble with Michael Moore. I'm Michael Moore, and this is part 4 of our 4 days in a row Super Tuesday Rumble podcast preview. And you are listening to this on Super Tuesday, hopefully. There are 14 states having primaries and caucuses today, I think mostly primaries, and then 2 other primaries taking place with Democrats abroad. That's American citizens who live abroad in other countries and work there, live there, and but still want to vote, and the Democrats let them vote. So they get to do that today. And American Samoa, a territory of ours, where people do not get to vote in the presidential election, but they do get to vote in the primaries, picking the presidential candidates, because we're nice like that. We're going to have our 5 millionth listener. We're going to do that in the next couple of days, because so many things happened yesterday on a Monday politically that we've got too much to cover, and I want to do this in a very short span right now so that you can listen to this and get on to work or school or whatever you're doing. Okay, it's been a crazy 48 hours since the more than 48 hours now since the South Carolina primary, the all-important South Carolina primary on Saturday, and this has been so interesting to just kind of listen to people, whether it's the people blabbing on TV or whether it's just people I run into in the hallway in the apartment building here, or down on the street, or emails I'm getting from old friends and family. Everybody is really worried about today. What's going on? What has been happening? And I've tried to kind of calm everybody down, and first by explaining that South Carolina, a beautiful state, is not representative, again, of the United States of America, just as Iowa is not, just as New Hampshire is not, and in some ways more so, a little more representative, Nevada. I have my own theory about what if it's a state that has a professional sports team, whether it's in hockey, basketball, baseball, or football, that means that there's enough people there to go to the game. They certainly can't afford the tickets to the game. That, of course, is left for people who live in the upper middle class and above to pay $100, $200, whatever, for a ticket to go to a professional sports game. But in Nevada, they do have a hockey team now, the Golden Knights, and one of the reasons for that is because Las Vegas is a major American city, and when you have a major American city, and by the way, most people live in the urban areas of this country, not in the rural areas, you have a mix of people, you have a mix of Americans, you have all ages, you have all colors, you have all faiths, you have all cultural backgrounds, and that's not South Carolina. South Carolina will have absolutely nothing to do with who wins in November. It's not fair to say it's an irrelevant state, because everybody in South Carolina counts. They're important. They're American citizens. South Carolina has given so many good things from its people to this country, like Stephen Colbert, right? They gave us Stephen Colbert. He was born and raised there. And Jesse Jackson was born and raised there. That's South Carolina. And they also gave us the Civil War, and a whole bunch of bad senators for the years after that, and up through and including the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and with 1 or 2 exceptions of Fritz Hollings and a couple of others. Basically a bunch of racist, segregationists, awful. So they voted, and what's great about the Democratic primary in South Carolina, of course, is that African Americans who live there make up the majority of the voters on the Democratic side, and so their voice was heard, and was heard loud and clear that they preferred Joe Biden, and so now Joe has, as I said yesterday, won his first state. He's run for president 3 times now. He's been wanting to be president for 32 years, since 1988. he's run, and finally won his first state on Saturday. And because of winning this one state that is not representative of the rest of the country, and I say that, again, not putting down anybody in South Carolina. I'm just saying that even with the incredible African-American voter turnout in South Carolina, again, we have not heard really hardly a peep from the majority of African Americans who live in this country. We have heard from a significant number of Latino voters in Nevada, but I can tell you from having campaigned across Iowa and New Hampshire, God bless them too, but you just don't run into a lot of black people, and that's just a fact. There are many African Americans who live in rural states, especially in the Deep South. Outside the Deep South, not so much. You know that. You know the state you live in, and ask yourself, when you're in the rural parts of that state, how many African Americans you run in. And because of, sadly, racist policies in the North and segregationist policies that were never really law, but the way that the culture existed, it made sure that black people did not live in the suburbs or other areas, in part because black Americans occupy the lowest rung of the economic ladder in this country. And so they're never able to have the amount of money you would need if you wanted to live in the suburbs. And to this day, that hasn't changed. Even though, yes, many African Americans have been able to get out, break out, do well, do better, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying there hasn't been any progress, but the fact remains, now I'm going to say the statistic, and I can't remember it exactly, but it's just such a shocking statistic in terms of the average white family, average white household has a wealth, meaning mostly, the equity they have in their home, whatever they might have in some savings, their cars, etc. You've got tens of thousands of dollars. The average white household. The average black household, it's a shocking number, and I can't believe I live in a country like this, that simply because of the color of your skin guarantees that this is how much you're allowed to have. History will not be kind to us, my friends, how we've let this go, why we let it go on for so long. So Joe Biden, a man I have met on a couple of occasions, very nice to me, very kind, very supportive, very big fan, etc. of me and what I've done and all that. Very nice guy. I think it's because I was thinking today, all of a sudden there's Joe Mentum. After every primary or after every debate, somebody else is ahead. There was Clobentum or Clobamentum for Amy Klobuchar at one point. There was, if you remember this, before Bloomberg opened his mouth in the first debate, up until that moment, how much the establishment of the Democratic Party and corporate America was hoping he'd be the candidate. And they really got a lot of people thinking, this is going to do it. This will bring Bernie down. Because this is what this is all about. Make no mistake, and this is what I want to talk to you about very quickly here on this last thing that you might be listening to before, if you're voting today. This is all about stopping Bernie. This is not about stopping Trump. In fact, it's the opposite of stopping Trump today. Nobody's talking about stopping Trump or beating Trump or crushing Trump or removing him from the White House. It's all about stopping Bernie, because Bernie is truly, when they keep using this term, the existential threat, Bernie is he is the existential threat to those who control the money, to the bosses of this country, the owners, as they like to think of themselves. He is their worst nightmare. Trump, not so much. Got a big tax cut from Trump, so they like him. And obviously, the Republicans, rich people like him, but well-off Democrats like him too. And in that one way, It's a very important way, though. And they would rather risk having Trump than ending up with Bernie Sanders in the White House. They would. I mean, they've said, I'm not just saying that, they've said so. First of all, Joe Biden said it a month and a half ago. He said that when he was asked, will you support Bernie if he's the nominee of the party? He said, no, I can't say that right now. I don't know. Really. Couldn't say that he would support the nominee of the Democratic Party. Right there, that should have been a disqualifier for Joe Biden. Because the only way we defeat Trump is if we all come together in November. And that means me, no matter how begrudging I would have to be with certain particular candidates, most of them have dropped out. But, we don't defeat Trump unless we agree on that. And so if you are just starting out of the gate saying that you don't know if it was Bernie, well, I don't know if I could do that. Really? Well, then I don't know if I will ever vote for you, if that's how you feel. Biden said it. Remember that? Then he tried to walk it back, a couple days later. Hillary said it. People don't like him. That's what she said about him. People don't like him, don't like Bernie. And she didn't know whether she could endorse him. If the people, the voters of the United States, and the Democratic side, made him the candidate. So Biden said it. She said it. Others said it. Have said it. Continue to say it. Continue to threaten. What does Bernie say? What has Bernie said consistently every single time he's been asked and has never deviated? That he's voting for, endorsing, and supporting the Democratic nominee on the November ballot. End of story. He has not equivocated. There are no caveats to that. The only thing I've heard him say, and it wasn't him, it was Jeff Weaver, his top campaign guy, was asked last week, if Bernie was a nominee, would he take Bloomberg's money? and Jeff said no. You don't start a campaign saying that I'm not taking billionaires' money, I'm not taking PAC money, and then just change your mind once you've got the nomination. I'm sure he would accept Mike Bloomberg's endorsement, obviously, yes, and his vote. And all billionaires will be welcome, of course, happily, to vote for Bernie, should they so choose. But that's it. No, but Bernie has made this very clear. Never step back from it. Did the same thing in 2016, endorsed Hillary, supported Hillary, showed up at the convention to announce the Vermont delegates going to Hillary, and at that announcement, that put her over the top in the count that was going on that night. Did he look happy? No. No, he'd been treated pretty poorly. They'd done a number of things to really try to make sure that he would not get the nomination. We've covered that. I'm not going to get back into that again. But yet he went out there and did 42 rallies for Hillary during the general election. No, but what we have now, it's... So Joe wins one state. Well, he wins one state in 32 years, and everybody's excited about Joe Biden. And then, as we discussed last night, we saw it coming yesterday. Pete Buttigieg drops out and then endorses Biden, as I predicted that he would. And then Amy Klobuchar dropped out late yesterday, Monday afternoon, and endorsed Biden. She showed up on the stage with him. Pete showed up. This is weird. He showed up too at that. I don't know if to call it a rally, because they made a mistake and showed a wide shot. There wasn't many people there in Dallas for Biden, but maybe I'm just spoiled looking at the Bernie rallies, or frightened by looking at the Trump rallies. That wasn't really a rally with Joe had, but that's because he doesn't have any grassroots support. The way they want to win this, the way the Biden plan, and I've seen this because, again, I've been in these primary states campaigning for Bernie. You don't see the Biden people. You don't see the Biden volunteers. They're nowhere. I'm serious. The Warren people are everywhere. Elizabeth Warren has an incredible ground game in all the states I've been in. Offices, volunteers, paid staff, everything. The yard signs, the bumper stickers, the enthusiasm amongst the Warren supporters is huge. So that's all been very visible to me personally. But Joe, I'm telling you, friends, I mean, I've been out there. I'm thinking, where's the campaign? I mean, of course, Bernie has, more donors than any other Democratic candidate. He's raised more money. The average donation is $18.50. He's got more volunteers. He's got most of everything, basically. I mean, in California today, so the election, California is one of the states today on Super Tuesday. California, I know this because I'm, part of trying to help Bernie. Had 25,000 people to at these last rallies. The ones here in the one in L.A. and then tonight or last night in St. Paul, Minnesota. Huge rallies. Ones that rival or are larger than Trump's. And Bernie's got 23 field offices throughout the state of California. 23 towns, 23 cities that have an actual up and running field office with tons of volunteers, a lot of paid staff, a mission every day to knock on so many doors, to meet people, to talk to people, and 23 in the state of California. I wanted to find out how many field offices that Joe Biden had in California for today's election, and I found out the number. Ready? Brace yourself. 1. Joe Biden has 1 campaign field office in the entire state of California. The reason why he has come in 3rd, 4th, 5th in these early, the first 3 primaries and caucuses, the reason why he really has been receiving little or no campaign contributions until after his win on Saturday, the reason why he does not have thousands upon thousands of volunteers like Bernie and Elizabeth have, the reason for this is because there is no grassroots support for Joe Biden. That's just a fact. And anytime when you have somebody thinking that a movement or a victory is going to happen from the top down, it just doesn't work. It works when there's a groundswell on the ground, keyword ground, and people rise up and say, I want to be involved. I want to give him my time. I want to send him my $18. That is what's really, that's what makes it work. That's why Bernie's ahead. Even as you're listening to this today, before the polls close today, Bernie is still number 1 in delegates. Even after that incredible win that Joe Biden got in South Carolina, Bernie still has the most delegates. Bernie still has the most campaign contributions. Bernie still has the most donors. Bernie is still number 1 in all the national polls. They did a poll actually just since the South Carolina on Saturday until I think sometime yesterday or last night, Monday. They did a poll in California just to see had there been any impact. And yes, Joe picked up some points in the polls, and yet the poll still shows for today's election in California, Bernie at number 1 with 35% of the vote, and Joe at number 2 with 18%. I mean, that's that wasn't reported yesterday. They're not talking about that. In every national poll that's been taken this past week, Bernie is number 1 in all of these polls. And in 75 of the polls that have been taken since whenever they started taking them back in the fall, as to when they do the head-to-heads, Bernie versus Trump, Biden versus Trump, Klobuchar versus Trump. Well, first of all, the good news is that there's always been 4 or 5 Democrats that beat Trump in these head-to-head polls. Elizabeth beats Trump in Texas in a head-to-head. Warren versus Trump. in Texas in the general election. So it's possible. I'm not so worried. I know a lot of you are very, very worried. And I should probably be the most worried because, I was very worried 4 years ago, and I tried to warn everybody about what was going to happen. So I'm not saying that Trump isn't going to win this time around. We have to act every day as if he is. If you pull back from that position, if you say, oh yeah, no, we got this in the bag, I don't think anybody feels that way. I think we know what we're up against here. But there's no groundswell here, and yet people get excited after each of these. People got really excited for Mayor Pete after Iowa, and that was good, and he did great, better than expected. We still live in a very homophobic country. The fact that he did that well in the Midwest, incredible moment in our American history. Don't deny that by anybody. That was great. And then it was all, you know what? It looks like he might win. He might go all the way. He might win. But, if you just step back from it, a few feet and look at what's really going on, you could see that he was going to do well in a few states. He's never going to win the nomination. And Joe Biden, who, when they were polling people last fall, Biden was, number one, I think, in just about every poll until they heard him speak, until the debate started, or until they saw him. Well, they didn't see much of him because his campaign knew not to have Joe out there talking to too many people. So it was very rare. And because whenever it happened, there was some flub, there was some flaw, there was something that said that was a little crazy or goofy or, there was just this behavior. Some of it people were worried about. You know what I'm talking about. I hate to even go there, but you know what? I kind of want to go there because I've had to listen to everybody talk about Bernie's heart attack, Bernie's health. Is he healthy enough to be? He's too old to be president, et cetera, et cetera. And then even at the debates, he's been asked more than once about his heart attack. They keep bringing up his heart attack. How come none of the moderators at the debates have said, Vice President Biden, are you okay? I haven't heard that question, have you? And yet you've thought it. Everybody's thought it. We think it in part out of caring and empathy and concern. He'll say things and you'll go, okay, is he all right? You want to think the best for people, especially our elderly. We respect them and love them. I know people make jokes about them, getting their driver's license or whatever, but man, wait till you get that age. I mean, I'm not there yet, obviously, but I'm like thinking, I remember when your parents or your grandparents get that age, they start to worry that they're going to take the driver's license away from them. They're going to be, quote, shut-ins and all that. And, you want them to be able to drive and get around and have a life. And so there's this uncomfortableness bringing this up, but nobody's uncomfortable asking Bernie. But nobody will ask after they hear Joe Biden say that he's really, really proud and happy to be running for a United States Senate. And then there's like this silence, and everybody's like, oh, somebody should tell him. Nobody knows what to say. He was on this Sunday with Chris Wallace on Fox, being interviewed by Chris. He calls him Chuck. Sometimes, like when he says somebody's name and it's not their name to them, sometimes they do what we all do with, because everybody's listening to this has had a grandparent or a great grandparent. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. You do not want to remind them that they might be, just because of what age does to all of us, just slipping a little bit. And so nobody says anything to him. He just calls somebody named Chris Chuck, and that's okay. Sometimes they'll correct him. I think that's the right thing to do. It's not a bad thing to I think he appreciates. I think elderly people do appreciate. They don't want you just sitting there thinking, oh, right? No, just say it. No, I'm not Chuck. I'm Chris. Chuck's actually doing Meet the Press on another network. If you can just switch the channel there. I'm Chris Wallace. You might have seen me. I've been on TV for 40 friggin' years. No discussion of this. So anyway, so Pete shows up in Dallas to endorse Joe. Amy shows up in Dallas to endorse Joe. Beto comes over from El Paso to endorse Joe, and suddenly there's Joe Mentum, and then all the pundits start going, "Yep, this is it. That's it. Now we're good. We're good now. We're good. We've stopped the socialist. We got Joe." Without thinking for a second that this is not about anything other than, sorry to say it, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. I will not participate in a campaign, as I did 4 years ago with Hillary, where they refuse to acknowledge how the votes are going to be counted. Yes, of course, I hate the Electoral College. I want it gone. It should be one vote, one person. That's it. That's how you count the votes. The winner is the person who gets the most votes. There was no plan amongst the Hillary staff to win the Electoral College. In fact, in the week or two there before the election, 4 years ago, they didn't have the time or the money or the wherewithal or whatever to visit Wisconsin or to spend much time, if any time, in Michigan. You know what they did? They put ads on TV in Texas because they started this thing about, maybe we could flip Texas. There was another red state too. They paid for TV ads, but they wouldn't go to Wisconsin. Wow. So this time around, I'm just going to pound away at this. It's the Electoral College. Even when I say to you that Bernie's number one in all these nationwide polls, and Bernie has beat Trump in 70 of the 75 polls that have been taken since this past fall, as to who would best beat Trump, and it's been Bernie in these polls. But you know what? I'm going to speak to you honestly here. It's about Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. 77,770 votes. That's what it was. That's what Hillary lost by. 77,770 votes in those three states. About 11,000 of them from Michigan. Wisconsin was 20-some thousand. And the rest were in Pennsylvania. And when you look at these polls that have been taken now recently, who beats Trump in Michigan the most? Bernie Sanders. Who beats him in Pennsylvania? Bernie Sanders. Who beats him in Wisconsin? In fact, the poll I saw last week, there's only one of these Democratic candidates that beats Trump in Wisconsin, and the man's name is Bernie Sanders. Where's the Burnmentum? Shouldn't that all, that's all we really should be on some level caring about, right? We are here to dispose of Donald J. Trump. But we are so easily distracted. Like a baby that you're holding your car keys up in front of the crib, or the little laser light you're messing with your cat. We're just, what? What's the dog in the movie Up? Squirrel! That's what we are. So Joe finally wins a state. Squirrel! Joe! People, calm down. Calm the fuck down. All right? Let's be smart about this. The people of Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are not going to vote for the man who voted for and was behind in a very excited way NAFTA, the trade bill back during the Clinton years that eliminated thousands upon thousands of jobs in those three states. It's one of the reasons Hillary did not win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. People in these states, I'm one of them, do not have a short memory about how they lost a good-paying union job thanks to the genius of NAFTA. And Joe Biden isn't going to win these 3 states. These states also sent a lot of their young people, men and women, in their National Guards to Iraq. Remember, the National Guard was supposed to be there. It's a state thing. It's your state National Guard. It's to protect you in your state if there's ever a reason to do that. If your life is threatened, there's the Michigan National Guard. You know, if there's a flood, there's the Pennsylvania National Guard. That's what the National Guard does. Instead, they were all sent to Iraq and Afghanistan by the Bush administration. And not just for 1 tour, and not for 2 tours, and not for 3 tours. 5, 7, 10, 15 tours. Yeah. That's not a sound effect. I'm recording this in a small room on top of a movie theater in New York City, but that has been going on practically this entire podcast. And now I'm thinking, perhaps it's not the police. Somebody is sending us a signal. Boom, 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 bum, 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 bum. Super Tuesday. Warning. Danger. America. Boom, 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 bum, bum, boom, boom, boom. No, I'm not high. Friends, if you're a Bernie supporter, do not despair. Do what you were going to do today. If you were going to do it, if you're in those states, vote. Take 10 people with you. Take 5 people with you. If you know people who live in the Super Tuesday states, please send them a text today. Remind them to vote. If you're not for Bernie, if you're for Elizabeth or Bloomberg, there's another one. I don't know who is for Bloom. Again, there's no, you understand, there's no grassroots ever out there at all for Bloomberg. You know that, right? Nobody woke up this morning and said, I can't wait to get to the polls and vote for Mike Bloomberg. No, that didn't happen today. That doesn't mean there aren't people are going to vote for him. There are people, some of you might vote for him. I don't know. But he's bought his way into this. Oh, my God. The mail I've gotten from people in these states, I mean, the money he has spent, the people he's hired. My sister teaches college in California. And a couple, 3 weeks ago, she got a letter from the Bloomberg campaign identifying her as a adjunct professor in one of the state schools in California. Okay, so this is the actual email that my sister got from the Bloomberg campaign. Now, how they got her name and her email, I don't know. Is that public information? I guess maybe it is if it's a state school. I don't know. But out of the blue, my sister, who both my sisters actually have been supporting Bernie, and they're both Californians, so I assume they're voting today. If they happen to be listening, don't forget to vote. Anyways, here it is. This is from someone from the Bloomberg campaign. Her name is Lauren Greenwood, and it says, "Hi, Professor Moore. My name is Lauren Greenwood, and I'm currently a graduate student working on the Michael Bloomberg presidential campaign. We're trying to implement a rapid get-out-the-vote effort, and we would love to connect with your students as soon as possible for a short-term job opportunity with the campaign. We're currently hiring for canvas positions that would start immediately and will pay $27 an hour." Wow. Okay. And then there's a link for the anybody interested in her students, they can link here as an added bonus. If these students are interested in politics or political science or policy or whatever, the lead organizer, Freddie Quintana, and I would love to answer any questions during breaks or shifts while doing, or after the shift, after going canvassing. We'd love to help connect these students and answer their questions. Freddie has significant policy experience working on a wide range of issues, from water rights or bail reform, and I have worked closely with the admissions committee at the UC Berkeley Haas School of Business during my time in business school. Oh, just what every undergrad wants to read. Yes, you can have a personal connection with someone who's worked closely with the admissions committee at Berkeley. Wow. And then finally, this last paragraph. If you can share your students' emails, get that? This is asking a professor. If you can share your students' emails, we'd be happy to pass along this message. Or if you don't mind forwarding this out to the students, we would really appreciate it. Let us know if you need any additional information. All the best. Lauren and Freddie. And that says Mike Bloomberg 2020. Mike will get it done. Wow. That's how much money he has. And that's how deep they try to reach. Asking professors to give their students emails to the campaign so they can offer them not $7.25 an hour, or not the California minimum wage of $11 something an hour, $27 an hour. Yeah, you understand what we're up against. And I don't mean just Bernie or the Bernie campaign. I mean us as American citizens. If we are ever going to control our government, of the one that says of, by, and for the people, we are going to have to change things, and we don't really have the time, folks. The climate alone, things like the coronavirus, we already know. Well, this level of fear that we're already afraid of Trump. We're already afraid of another 4 years of Trump. We're afraid that one of these old-timey Democrats that are from the old days, the old school Democrats, where you get things half done, you have half measures, you sing Kumbaya with these right-wing Republicans. And now we're afraid of a virus that, what do we have in the country? 500 test kits? What was the number? 500, 550? That's what we started with. The Chinese, they tested 1 million people in the first week or two of this when they finally had to admit that it was going on, because they lied to their own people to begin with. But we're so afraid of this thing spreading, and all we are continually told to do is to wash our hands and don't touch people, and stay home as much as possible. And you know what's around the corner. They're already doing it in these other countries. They've shut down school for the next couple of months. They've shut down their Major League Baseball in Japan. The teams are playing each other to empty stadiums, 50,000 seat stadiums. That are empty while they go along and they play the actual game. Well, let's hope this doesn't happen here, but hope is not a method. And I'm telling you, well, I don't need to tell you. You already know it. We don't want to say it out loud. We already know the shit that is going to hit the fan. It's already started. We've got a doofus in the White House who only wants to look good. He's only going to look bad. And this, more than anything, could do him in. And this is not the way I want to take him out of the White House. No. We want Trump and his administration to succeed in fighting this virus and keeping us safe. Nobody should hope for anything else other than that. I know, you're like, oh, that's good. That's another hopey hope thing, Mike? Yeah, that's a hopey hope. What's our alternative right now? This is why he has to go, and this is why we have to put somebody in who is going to stand up for the things we believe in, and who's going to win these electoral college states, not win them. The person that's going to win it is not somebody that voted for NAFTA. The person that's going to win these electoral college states we need to win is not somebody who voted for the Iraq War. The person that's going to win these 3 states that suffered most during the crash of '08, the housing crash, with people that lost their homes. Not going to vote for the guy who voted for the bankruptcy bill and the credit card bill that favored the banks. That's Joe Biden in each of those cases. Don't think for a second that people in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania don't know that. If you've convinced yourself that, Biden is the one that's going to defeat Trump, let me just say that I respect how you feel. I respect it mainly because I know how afraid you are. We're all afraid. If you think Elizabeth Warren is the one, I respect that. I even respect it if you think Bloomberg is the one. It's just that, what can I say? I don't know. What can I say to change your mind? Let me say this. I'll just go from my own experience on this. We're all afraid, and we're making decisions now based on fear. Whether it's the fear of the coronavirus, whether it's fear of all the things we're having to put up with Trump, and whether it's the fear of, am I voting for the right person that's going to get rid of Trump? And is that person going to make life better here in the United States for all of us? But when you vote from fear, if that's the ultimate thing that's motivating, however you're coming down on this decision of which candidate, can I just remind you, if you've lived any bit of your life already, and this maybe this is why young people have the least fear. I mean, they have a lot of fear. They have a fear that they're never going to see the planet live to a ripe old age of another 10 billion years. They fear they might see the end of the planet. That's a real fear. And they fear that they won't have what their parents had in terms of money, help. But and we were that age once. There's a great sense of adventure in us when we're in our teens and 20s and 30s. Maybe not so much the 30s. By the time, there's a certain age where you realize, oh fuck, this is what life is. Oh. Okay, I'll suck it up. Gotta get up tomorrow morning. But before that point happens, they make their decisions based on their own serious hope and the serious vision that they have for the future, their future. That's why there was 70% of them between 18 and 29 are for Bernie. Another, I don't know what it is, between 18 and 35. I think it's like 55% are for Bernie. 18 to 45, it's like 52% are for Bernie. He's number one with people who are under the age of 45. But after 45, it really starts to take a dive, doesn't it? And I think a lot of it is, if I can just speak to those of you who are in my age group over the age of 45, think of the times in your life when you've made a decision based on fear. How's it worked out for you? Not based on faith in yourself, a decision not based on knowing what your talents are and what your skills are, a decision not based on like a strong belief that this is the way it must be. How many times have we, all of us, made a decision where we were afraid to leave a job that we knew we hated and we should get out of, but we didn't. We were afraid. We were afraid wouldn't be able to pay the rent or the mortgage. We're afraid we wouldn't, the monthly student loan debt bill, won't be able to pay that. I won't have benefits. I won't have health insurance. All the reasons all of us have kept a job that we shouldn't have kept because we were afraid. And then we stayed in that job for way too many months or years longer. You could say the same thing about relationships. Afraid to leave a relationship that you know isn't right for you. And you just keep convincing yourself that it'll be right maybe someday. Maybe it's you chose this college, and after a semester there, you knew it was wrong. You know, you're 18 years old. You really shouldn't be afraid. You can try another college. Well, I don't know. I got the loan for this college, and I did get a grant, and you know. We don't end up very happy when we keep making decision after decision out of fear. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be afraid of things. There are things that you need to be very afraid of. But you've got to know when to separate that out and know, okay, you know, yes, there's a reason why I'm a little afraid of, you know, fill in the blank. And then there's the other times where you're just afraid because think of how many times maybe even you've changed your mind in the last 2 or 3 months about who to vote for. You know, it doesn't work. That's what I've learned. And what I don't know, at some point in my adult life, I just decided to start doing what my gut said, what I think is the right thing to do, and having a little courage. And even though there's a voice saying, and I'm like, that's, you know, you've never made a movie before. I mean, come on, you don't know how to do this. And then you just say to yourself, yes, I do. Oh, really? You got the two voices in your head now going, oh, really? You know how to make a movie? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't go to film school. Yeah, but I've seen a lot of movies. What? That's not how you make a movie. You've seen a lot of movies? This conversation actually took place. You're too old to be making your first movie. You're 35 years old. There's nobody 35 or 40 at Sundance. You're not going there. Oh, man. The number we do to ourselves. The number we do on ourselves. It's sad. Hey, everybody. Have some courage here. You know who you feel best about, who's going to make this country the best it can be. Okay, don't let hear the little voices come in. Yeah, but we need to win the Senate. We won't win the Senate with candidate X. That's not true. We're going to win the Senate the same way we're winning the White House. The same way we had a bartender running for the House of Representatives from the Bronx, who may end up being our first woman president in this decade. Don't say that. Don't say that it's not possible. It's, I think it's, I don't know which candidate, it might be Bernie, that's been quoting Nelson Mandela, his quote, that everything is impossible until it happens. Right? Everything is impossible until it isn't. And we never would have advanced as a species. We never would have advanced as a country if a whole bunch of people hadn't said, I don't care if it's impossible. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to will it to happen. As I've said on previous podcasts, how did the women, the suffragettes, who were celebrating the 100th year of the vote for women, how did they ever in the 1840s think to themselves that they were going to convince the all-male legislatures, first in Congress and the Senate, and then in how many, today it's like 38 states that you have to get an amendment to the Constitution passed. They thought they could convince, because there were no women in these bodies. These were all men. They're going to have to convince the gender who was opposed to them having the vote to begin with. And yet they did it. And you can cite other examples of this, both in history, but you can also cite examples in your personal life. You know when things did start to get better, when you were willing to take those risks, you were willing to have some courage, you were willing to stop listening to all the voices that say, oh no, he can't win. Nobody likes him. He had a heart attack. Oh man, I know. But really, for me, it's not just about Bernie, man. It's just like it don't. So Elizabeth Warren has only been getting single digits in these early, this past Saturday and whatever. Don't give up on her. If you still think she's the one and that she's still in it, she hasn't quit. Get out there today and vote for her. But try to convince me that Joe Biden on November 3rd, when the alarm goes off on the clock to wake up that morning, that Joe Biden is going to inspire young people and all kinds of people who live in all parts of this country to rush to the polls, to bring 5 people with them to vote. I think everybody ends up liking him. I think that's very understandable. I think I began this podcast by saying I like him. I've been with him a couple times. It's, he's a good guy. He's just voted the wrong way so many times on so many issues regarding race, the crime bill, NAFTA, the Iraq War. You know the list. I'm not going to go over it again. So, I'll close with this. I got a note, a text. I got a number of texts yesterday from various friends wanting to know what's the deal, what's going to happen. And I told them, Bernie's still got the most delegates. He's still polling at number 1 in these nationwide polls, and he's polling number 1 in these polls in the states that we need to win in the Electoral College. But I said, let me just remind you of something I not only have witnessed firsthand in these travels with Bernie in the country, but it's a fact-based thing that has been in the media as recent as just this past weekend. The majority of Americans, 50%, a little over 50% of this country, does not have $500 of cash in their pocket or in their bank account or anywhere. More than half the country doesn't have $500 to their name. Actual available cash. In other words, if their car broke down, if a loved one passed away across the country, they couldn't go to the funeral, they couldn't fix the car tomorrow. Why is Bernie number 1 in all these polls? That's why. Because that's who they're calling. They're calling real people, not pundit people, real people. And these real people are tired of seeing their prescription doubled, then tripled, then quadrupled. The powers that be have made life so difficult for people living from paycheck to paycheck that they're sick and tired of it. And they've turned people off. They don't understand why these polls show that, especially amongst Democrats, and definitely with young people, when they ask if they have a positive view of democratic socialism or not, and the majority do. The majority do. And the reason they do is because anytime you associate your prescription being tripled, or the fact that you don't have $500 to your name, that's called capitalism. And that's why people have turned against it. Not because they're against, the mom and pop business that's trying to get by, or anybody who's out there working their butt off for a living. No, that's not why. They're the more Bernie is berated, the more they try to use the socialist thing on him, because they don't want to say democratic socialist, because the emphasis then goes to democratic. And then when you understand it, it means that he's a modern day Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's what he really stands for, and that's what he believes in. But the more that they call the fact that you can see a doctor and not have to worry about going bankrupt, or that your tuition for college would be free, you would no longer be in debt. You're a single mom trying to get by, and there's now suddenly free or affordable daycare available to you. And the other side keeps going, that's socialism. Well, at some point, people start to go, well, damn, I guess if that's what you're calling it, that sounds pretty good to me. It's like they've brought this on themselves. But here was the statistic from this weekend, and I'll let you go. That really kind of blew my mind. And 32% of the population, so a third of working people, run out of money before they get their next paycheck. Think about that. So if you're paid let's say you're paid every 2 weeks, you get your paycheck, and you get through that next week, fine. But by the end of that second weekend, and now you're in that second week and you're not getting paid till Friday, and you don't have the available cash to just get by. It could be something as simple as just having lunch money. It could be that you have a certain bill that's due, like where it says, if not paid by blankety blank, you have to pay that by Wednesday, but you're not getting any cash till Friday. How many people's credit ratings have been ruined because you've sent it in a couple days late or a week late, right? The system is set up to just screw you. And now enough people know that. And when you have screwed millions upon millions of Americans, they look for a different kind of candidate who's saying the things that they believe in and wants to create a country that they want to live in. And so the people who oppose that, who oppose the people taking over, are doing everything they can to try and stop one particular candidate this week, today. Don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Don't be turned by all this nonsense. If you live in one of those states today, Super Tuesday, please vote. Please vote. And don't forget to wash your hands. And bump elbows, not fists. And never forget that we have one job in 2020 that must be accomplished by November 3rd, and that is the removal of Donald J. Trump. Thanks, everybody, for listening to these 4 days in a row of Super Tuesday podcasts. I'll be back at you here in a couple of days with more of our regular Rumble. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for your comments. They're all much appreciated. Thanks for those of you not voting for Bernie but still listen. I love you the most. I know how hard this must be to. It's like Bernie, Marsha, Bernie. I'm only doing it because I feel strongly about this, and I feel like last time 4 years ago when I said that, living in Michigan, I can tell you Trump's going to win, and I couldn't get anybody to listen to me, and I've thought about it for 4 years about, well, maybe you didn't say it enough, or maybe you didn't say it the right way, or maybe you need to learn to communicate better with people, because if people had really listened to you, we wouldn't be in the shape we're in right now. Hillary lost Michigan by 2 votes per precinct. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Hillary lost Michigan by 2 votes per precinct. That's it. Yeah, I didn't do enough. I didn't say it enough. So that's why I probably sound like a broken record at this point sometimes about Bernie Sanders. But I'm doing it because I love this country. I love this country. And I love the fact that we're part of this larger planet. And I care about this planet. And I care about you. And I respect you if you disagree with me. That's perfectly okay. I'll mostly be happy if you just get out and vote and participate in some campaign or do something to try and turn this around, to get rid of Trump and to get rid of that which gave us Trump. 2 jobs. Get rid of Trump. Get rid of that which gave us Trump. We can do this, folks. Thanks for listening. It's Super Tuesday! Woohoo! Super duper Tuesday! This is Michael Moore, and this is Rumble.